On New Year's Day, 1942, the leaders of the United States, Great Britain, China, and the USSR met to sign the United Nations Declaration. The next day, representatives from 22 other nations added their signatures to the document. As the core nations planned for the United Nations Conference, the only nations invited were those who had declared war on Germany and Japan before March of 1945. Fast forward by 3 years, the San Francisco Conference was held. 50 nations, 850 delegates, 2,500 press and media participated. That day, the delegates planned how they would move forward in creating the charter for the UN. So, the steering committee divided all delegates into 4 commissions. One commission to focus on the general purpose of the UN, the second to focus on the UN General Assembly, the third to focus on the UN Security Council, and the fourth to focus on the International Court of Justice. On June 25, 1945, the final meetings were held, and the conference chair announced that the charter had been passed unanimously. Though the charter was approved 4 months later, in October, many involved expected that there would be a review of the United Nations Charter 10 years later, because they felt the charter fell short of accomplishing the UN's major mission, the end of wars and organized violence. '" 1955 passed, and there was no charter review. 1965 passed, and there still was no charter review. 1975 passed, no charter review. Over 70 years has passed since the creation of the UN, and there has not been a review of the UN Charter. This is the goal of the San Francisco Promise. United Nations reform through charter review. The San Francisco Promise is, in fact, the promise to that commitment. Why? Because charter review is the best way to reform the UN at its core. This would be similar to amending the constitution of a government. Now, how do we get a charter review? Number 1, we need to get 2/3 of the 195 member nations in the UN General Assembly to launch a charter review. Number 2, we need you to call or email the ambassador of 2 to 3 nations in the UN and tell them you are lobbying for the UN to start an official review of the charter. Number 3, we need you to share this video and let other people know about the Democratic World Federalists, the World Federalist Movement, and the San Francisco Promise. Climate change, global corporatism, illegal wars, nuclear weapons, a global New Deal development program, and more. All this can be changed with a review of the United Nations Charter. If you would like to help, please go to our website at www.dwfed.org and go to the contact page. Fill in the email form and title it, "I would like to help with the San Francisco Promise." Remember that no matter the size of your contribution, it will help us to create a better world of peace, justice, and sustainable development. Also remember this: one people, one future, one world. That's our promise to you. That's our promise to the people of the world.